Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the sharpest critics of human nature, believed that society is not designed to recognize excellence, but to protect its comfort. In his masterpiece, The World as Will and Representation, he argues that most people are driven by blind, unconscious forces rather than by reason or intellect. From this perspective, it's not surprising that society tends to elevate the average and suppress the extraordinary. According to Schopenhauer, true genius is often condemned not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. He once wrote, "All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident." In a world dominated by routine and repetition, a truly original thinker becomes an existential threat to the crowd's sense of order. It's easier and safer for the crowd to reward what feels familiar, even if it's mediocre. This dynamic is especially visible in political life. Visionary leaders are often too complex, too nuanced for the public taste. Instead, populist figures, those who say little but loudly, are embraced. Mediocrity feels relatable. As José Ortega y Gasset warns in The Revolt of the Masses, the characteristic of the hour is that the mediocre mind, aware of its mediocrity, has the boldness to assert the rights of mediocrity and impose them everywhere. This inversion of values allows shallow competence to outshine uncomfortable brilliance. In science and academia, the pattern repeats. Paradigm-shifting ideas are commonly rejected in their infancy. Galileo was mocked. Gregor Mendel's genetics work was ignored for decades. Schopenhauer knew this pattern well and cynically observed that scholars often care more about their careers than about the truth. Bureaucratic structures reward compliance, not creativity. In Pierre Bourdieu's Homo Academicus, we see how institutionalized academia favors those who master the game over those who reinvent the board. In the arts, the story is perhaps even sadder. The painter who follows trends and flatters popular taste is often praised, while the one who challenges perception is dismissed or misunderstood. Vincent van Gogh sold only 1 painting in his lifetime. Kafka died thinking he was a failure. The market rewards what it understands, not what stretches its imagination. Even Simone Weil, the mystic philosopher and critic of social oppression, suggested that the human soul yearns for the real, but can only receive it when stripped of vanity. That makes genuine genius nearly unbearable for most. It doesn't flatter, it doesn't pander, it reveals. And revelation is rarely comfortable. Schopenhauer saw human nature as fundamentally flawed, not evil, but blind. The masses do not conspire against talent. They simply cannot recognize it until it's made digestible, softened, or made safe by time. And so, history becomes a graveyard of unnoticed brilliance and a trophy shelf of those who merely played the game well. Nietzsche, who both admired and critiqued Schopenhauer, picked up this theme in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, warning that society fears the overman, the one who transcends common values. Nietzsche's lone creator is mocked precisely because he does not echo the herd. His call to become who you are is a threat to collective mediocrity. So what does this mean for our world today? In the age of algorithms, viral trends, and short attention spans, mediocrity spreads faster than ever. Popularity has become a measure of worth. But as Schopenhauer might remind us, the person who writes for fools will always find a large audience. The question is whether we still have the courage to recognize real greatness, especially when it doesn't fit into a hashtag. This preference for the familiar over the exceptional is not just a historical accident, it is a structural condition. Mediocrity is systemically protected because it preserves equilibrium. In contrast, true brilliance is disruptive. It destabilizes narratives, questions authority, and demands uncomfortable change. Consider the workplace. In most organizations, promotions often go not to the most capable, but to the most agreeable. The employee who challenges flawed strategies may be intellectually correct, but is often seen as difficult. Meanwhile, those who conform, who echo the company line, and who make their superiors feel secure, they rise. As Schopenhauer might say, they do not disturb the herd. And in systems built on hierarchy, Disturbing the herd is the cardinal sin. This phenomenon is closely linked to what French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu called symbolic capital, the kind of recognition that flows not necessarily from quality, but from social validation. A mediocre book reviewed in the right journal or endorsed by the right academic gains prestige, regardless of its actual merit. Meanwhile, a groundbreaking work that doesn't fit the dominant discourse remains invisible. Legitimacy, in this sense, is often just another word for comfort. Schopenhauer, ever the pessimist, did not believe this could be easily changed. For him, the individual of true intellect or artistic genius must accept solitude as a necessary condition of clarity. In Parerga and Paralipomena, he writes, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom." In other words, the pursuit of excellence often requires a conscious detachment from the crowd, because the crowd will rarely understand, let alone reward, what it cannot immediately consume. This rejection is not always hostile. Often, it's simply silent. Think of the quiet dismissal of the student who reads too far ahead, the artist whose work is too abstract, the thinker who doesn't simplify enough. These individuals are not attacked, they are ignored. And as Hannah Arendt once noted, the sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil. Mediocrity thrives not because it is malicious, but because it is passive. There is also a psychological comfort in the mediocre. It's familiar. It reaffirms the norms of the group. And for most people, being part of the group is far more valuable than being exceptional. As social psychologist Erich Fromm explains in Escape from Freedom, individuals often fear their own autonomy. Freedom, brilliance, originality, they come with responsibility. Mediocrity, on the other hand, comes with applause. In a society governed by mass consumption, where ideas must be packaged, simplified, and monetized, the true thinker or creator becomes an anomaly. They do not fit into a tweet. They do not go viral. Their work requires effort to understand, and effort is the enemy of marketability. And yet, Schopenhauer would not have advised despair. While he had little faith in the crowd, he had enormous faith in the individual. The value of genius, for him, lies not in public applause, but in the quality of insight itself. To see what others cannot see, to think what others dare not think, this is its own reward. The tragedy is not that society ignores such people. The tragedy is that many of them, seeing no recognition, silence themselves. In today's digital culture, the Schopenhauerian diagnosis feels eerily prophetic. The world he described, one in which the masses elevate the safe and suppress the sublime, has become hypercharged by algorithms and social media. The metrics of modern value, likes, shares, views, are designed not to reward substance but speed, accessibility, and appeal to the lowest common denominator. In this context, the rise of mediocrity is not just tolerated, it's incentivized. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube favor the quick, the digestible, the unthreatening. A thought-provoking, nuanced idea may take 10 minutes to explain. A trend-driven dance lasts 10 seconds. Guess which one gets pushed to millions? As Byung-Chul Han argues in The Transparency Society, the attention economy does not reward the deepest thought. It rewards the most visible surface. And in such a system, excellence becomes a liability. Mediocrity thrives in the spotlight because it is non-threatening. It flatters the viewer. It confirms their worldview. It entertains without challenging. The influencer who parrots self-help cliches is elevated. The philosopher who questions the foundations of identity or meaning remains niche. And the few who attempt to blend depth with reach, those rare exceptions, often find themselves pressured to simplify until all originality is drained. Meanwhile, academia is no longer a sanctuary for brilliance. The publish or perish model pushes scholars to produce in volume, not insight. Impact factors and citation counts have replaced intellectual daring as markers of success. In academic capitalism, Slaughter and Rhodes demonstrate how neoliberal principles have turned universities into bureaucracies, where conformity is rewarded and risk is punished. The scholar who proposes a radical reinterpretation may struggle for funding. The one who adds a footnote to an already approved narrative finds stability. This has consequences far beyond the ivory tower. The public becomes intellectually malnourished. Complex ideas are reduced to clickbait. Philosophers become content creators. Scientists become brand ambassadors. And artists are pressured to become personalities. The result? A culture where appearance triumphs over depth and noise drowns out signal. Schopenhauer would have found this both predictable and tragic. In his view, mass culture cannot produce greatness. It can only consume it, dilute it, and repurpose it for comfort. The true thinker must remain, in a sense, antisocial, not in hostility, but in detachment. In On Noise, a short essay of almost comic bitterness, he rants against the cursed street drumming of his time, which he saw as symbolic of society's intolerance for concentration and originality. One can only imagine what he would say about notification pings and comment sections. But here lies a paradox. Though society resists brilliance, it is ultimately shaped by it. The ideas that first seem obscure, offensive, or irrelevant often become the pillars of future understanding. Schopenhauer himself was ignored for most of his life. Only late in his career did he gain a following, and even then, he was more influential among artists and outsiders than among philosophers. And yet his fingerprints are everywhere, in Nietzsche, Freud, Wittgenstein, even in the novels of Thomas Mann and the films of Ingmar Bergman. So perhaps there is hope, not in expecting society to recognize greatness in real time, but in understanding that greatness leaves traces, that the lonely mind, writing in obscurity, may still alter the world, one soul at a time. In The World as Will and Representation, Schopenhauer reminds us that the deepest truths are not democratic. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Throughout history, some of the most transformative minds were not only uncelebrated in their time, they were actively resisted, ridiculed, or ignored. This is not incidental. It is, as Schopenhauer might argue, a consequence of society's deep-seated hostility toward anything that does not serve its immediate comfort. Take Nikola Tesla, a man whose mind danced decades ahead of his peers. He envisioned wireless communication long before it was even conceivable, developed alternating current, laid the groundwork for technologies that still power our world. Yet he died in obscurity, alone in a hotel room, with barely enough money to pay his bills. Why? Because Tesla didn't play the social game. He didn't flatter the rich, didn't build empires. He built ideas. And ideas, unless marketed, often die quietly. Or Søren Kierkegaard, perhaps the most influential existential thinker in modern philosophy. In his lifetime, he was mocked by newspapers, dismissed by academia, and largely unread. Today, we call him the father of existentialism. But during his life, the crowd branded him as eccentric, too intense, too paradoxical. And in his attack upon Christendom, he wrote, "The crowd is untruth," a direct echo of Schopenhauer's contempt for the masses. Kierkegaard knew, truth doesn't emerge in applause, it often hides in the wilderness. Then there is Alan Turing, the man who cracked the Enigma code and arguably shortened World War II by years. He laid the foundation for modern computer science, but he was persecuted for his homosexuality, chemically castrated by the state he had helped save, and driven to suicide. His genius was only formally acknowledged decades later. By then, it was too late. His brilliance had been used, but never honored. What do all these figures share? They did not conform. They did not chase applause. They saw the world not as it was, but as it could be. And society, loyal to comfort, did what it always does. It rejected what it could not immediately categorize. Schopenhauer believed this was inevitable. In On Genius, he argues that the man of true intellect is always alone. Not out of arrogance, but because he walks a path no one else sees. And until the world catches up, it prefers to mock the path rather than follow it. But there's something redemptive in these stories too. Because although brilliance may be ignored in its time, It has a strange habit of echoing through history. The crowd forgets quickly, but truth, once uncovered, does not. Tesla's name now powers electric revolutions. Kierkegaard is read in every serious philosophy department. Turing is a symbol of both scientific genius and the tragic cost of societal prejudice. Perhaps that is the final irony. Mediocrity may dominate the present, but it rarely survives the future. What is popular today is often forgotten tomorrow. But what was once dismissed, what was once too strange, too bold, too unsettling, can become immortal. If mediocrity not only survives but thrives, it's not simply because people prefer the familiar. It's because the system is designed to reward it. In capitalist societies, especially those deeply intertwined with consumer culture, success is often measured not by depth, but by scalability. A brilliant, challenging idea might nourish a few minds. A shallow, mass-produced one can sell to millions. That's the economic logic. As French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu explored in Distinction, the culture industry favors products that reproduce existing tastes, not challenge them. Because challenging ideas require effort, and effort slows consumption. This is why algorithms boost content that is emotionally reactive, not intellectually reflective. Platforms profit when users scroll quickly, not when they pause to think. Complexity slows engagement. Nuance doesn't trend. As a result, the system selects for what is digestible, repeatable, and frictionless. Mediocrity in this sense becomes a business model. In education, we see similar patterns. Standardized testing, rigid curricula, and institutional funding all tend to reward conformity over creativity. Students are trained to perform, not to inquire. Schools produce workers for the market, not thinkers for the world. As Ivan Illich warned in Deschooling Society, our institutions often educate against independent thought, because independent thought can't be managed, predicted, or monetized. Even politics follows this logic. The charismatic populist who speaks in slogans is more electable than the philosopher-statesman who dares to explain complexity. Democracy, Schopenhauer argued, easily becomes a rule by mediocrity because the masses are flattered by those who resemble them, not by those who surpass them. In other words, mediocrity persists because it is functional. It oils the gears of bureaucracy, marketing, and mass governance. It demands no courage, no silence, no deep inner life. And for that reason, it is easy to package, sell, and vote for. So where does that leave those who strive for something more? It leaves them in a strange kind of exile, and yet perhaps also in good company. Because history shows us this: though systems reward mediocrity, only brilliance survives the system. In the long arc of time, truth makes its way not by pleasing the majority, but by whispering to the few who are ready to hear it. So if you've ever felt unseen for thinking deeply, creating slowly, or refusing to water down your ideas, take heart. You are not alone. You're walking the same road once walked by Tesla, Kierkegaard, Turing, and yes, even Schopenhauer. The world may not clap for you today, it may even laugh. But remember, applause is loud, echo is eternal. If you found value in this video, consider subscribing for more content on philosophy, society, and the quiet power of those who don't fit in. And as always, stay thoughtful, stay strange.